Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? We're 2 weeks away from the start of Saints training camp. Kat Terrell, good enough to join us for a couple of minutes now. Kat, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm about to go on vacation in a few days. One last week off before training camp. Like you said, I can't believe it's almost here. It's kind of crazy.
So is the vacation out west and you're just staying there in California?
No, it's a staycation. Basically meaning I'm going to turn my brain off and not think about football for 5 days.
That's awesome.
Possible? I don't know if that's possible, but I'm going to try.
You can pull it off. Binge on Netflix and really good whiskey. By the way, what's your favorite whiskey?
It's still Weller 12. Matt,
Hey!
I haven't changed.
See, Kat and I have this great synergy when it comes to Weller 12. She's got great taste. What can I say?
It's the best.
Are you? It really is. Are you? You had a great piece up about the kind of evaluating the quarterback room. What? Real quick, just what was the impetus to do that over the weekend?
I thought about that piece for a couple of weeks. I think that it's just interesting to me, kind of how much Jake Haener has come out swinging, I guess. For lack of a better term, I think Jake Haener has had a really great start to the offseason. For whatever reason, I don't know if he, was inspired by them drafting someone 1 year after he was drafted, or if it's just the natural progression. But I think it makes it exciting because I kept saying this all summer. So few teams do what the Saints are doing right now. Teams just don't like to draft quarterbacks back to back. So after all these years of the Saints having veteran backups, I think it's really kind of fun to look at these young quarterbacks just kind of duking it out for the backup role. And I think that that's going to be something to watch for the next month.
Do you think we see either of those guys? I guess maybe Kat's an unfair question. I would say, do you think we see either Haener or Rattler this year? But it would probably be only for injury, yeah?
I mean, I would think so, because the way I look at it is that the Saints invested all this money in Derek Carr. Carr is Dennis Allen's guy. So basically, these two were tied together. So if Dennis Allen decides to bench Carr, I don't know. I mean, I think that would be a really big deal, right? And even last year when Carr was injured, he never stopped playing. He played every game. And if they were ever going to sit him for injury, it should have been that Tampa game, and they didn't do it. So I kind of feel like they're going to stick with him no matter what. We'll see what happens. But, unless there's an injury, I'd be surprised to see either one. But, honestly, in December, if the season's not going well, I guess we'll see what happens then. But I kind of feel like we're going to see Carr all year.
Kat, do you think how many quarterbacks do they keep on the roster?
I think they keep 3.
And so there's obviously the emergency quarterback that you keep on game day we know about, but could you explain the significance of keeping a third quarterback on the roster just because of what that means for roster limits and everything?
Well, it's something the Saints have often done, depending on how you look at Taysom Hill, I guess. There were a lot of years when Drew Brees was playing where they kept 2 because they didn't need a third one. Then I feel like ever since Taysom Hill's come along, around that time period, they've kept 3 a lot because Hill is a quarterback, but not really a quarterback. So, they've kind of been able to utilize the roster spot for him. And if you look at it that way, they'd be keeping 4 quarterbacks because technically he is a quarterback. It is a pretty big deal, though, if we're going to keep 3, and 2 of them are very young, and you don't expect to play them. That is really interesting, and it's not something teams do a lot because roster spots are so precious. However, I just would be surprised. Say Haener wins his backup job. Well, they're not gonna cut Rattler, right? Like they're not gonna they're not gonna cut him right after they drafted him. And I don't think they would cut Haener either. Like I think that you want to develop both of them, but that's what makes and football nerds like me, like, so curious to watch how this all plays out, because I don't really think that you obviously don't sneak Rattler through waivers. Could you get Haener through waivers? Maybe, because another team would have to put him on their 53, which is asking a lot when they have their own quarterbacks they're developing. But I don't know if they'd want to take that chance with how good he's looked so far.
I mean, Kat, didn't the Saints effectively try to do that with Ian Book and it bit him?
I'm trying to remember. I kind of feel like they had moved on at that point. And maybe it's possible that was what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think Book, unfortunately, just had the worst luck. He started in a game where there was, I think, 20 players out and kind of thrown in there.
Yeah.
Obviously didn't play well. I mean, because who is going to play well in that situation? And then I felt like after that, it was kind of all downhill. I think he is with the Eagles now, or was. I'm not sure if he still is.
The Saints waived him, and my thought, Kat, was always they were trying to give him a clear waiver, sign him back to the practice squad because they didn't want to just punt on a 4th round pick, and, and the Eagles scooped him up.
Yeah, he's actually with the Chiefs now.
Wow.
I was wrong. Yeah, I mean, that's possible. He has been on practice squad the last 2 years. Wow, I'm kind of behind on Ian Book's.
You get a pass on former Saints bust draft picks. It's okay. You don't have to know where they all are. Where were you when? Where are they now? Kat Terrell's with us, ESPN.com. She's on Twitter at @Kat_Terrell. Give her a follow. Hey, is Nathan Peterman has no shot of making this team, right? This is just a camp arm?
Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense to me. I think that Peterman is a guy they might want to keep around on the practice squad if they want that veteran voice, because, he's worked with Carr. He's worked with some of the Saints coaches. That would make sense to me because, no one's going to, I mean, no offense, but no one's going to be running to take him away. So maybe he sticks around in some capacity, but we kind of just overlook him totally. Sorry, Nate Peterman. Yeah. But no, I don't see any path to him making the roster because right now he barely gets any reps. They basically give him 1 or 2, and then they give him to the other quarterbacks. So,
Kat, it's interesting because for years Drew Brees always wanted that veteran backup, or the guy that he could trust, he could sit on the bench and talk to. We saw Chase Daniel do that for years. McCown was that guy for years. Did we see Mark Brunell at one point was backup? So do you have a strong feeling one way or another about that? Should a team have its backup be a young guy they're developing, or should it be a resource, like a veteran asset to the starter?
Usually I think if you can spare the roster spots, it's really nice to have a young guy and a veteran backup behind your starting quarterback. But, some teams just can't afford that roster spot, and some teams think that it's a necessity. So it really depends on what's going on with the team, and I'm actually working on my 53-man roster projection right now. But I think ideally, you kind of have a mix of all 3 of those.
Give us a little bit of a spoiler. What's the toughest decision there on your 53-man roster spot?
Let me look. I was doing it earlier this week, and then I paused it. What is the tough one? I think that offensive line, the back of the offensive line is often tough because this year it's so kind of chaotic. There's so many spots up for grabs, and that is going to be a big storyline day 1 of training camp. What happens to Ryan Ramczyk?
Mm-hmm.
There's Andres Pete. So probably the back of the offensive line, maybe the last defensive back spot, and then maybe the last linebacker spot. Usually with any 53-man roster, you could probably name 47 players in a span of minutes. And then it's those last spots that you're always trying to figure out who makes the team. And a lot of it comes down to special teams. But with all of the new rules and stuff, I feel like that's kind of fair game now. Everything's kind of changed as to how they make up special teams and who's on the special teams units. So I think that's going to give a shot for maybe players that wouldn't have made the team before to possibly make the team now.
All right, last thing for you. Tom, always appreciated. Kat Terrell, before she goes on vacation, ESPN.com. Do you have any reason for optimism that this could be a playoff team?
I was actually randomly thinking about that earlier today because I think about football even when I'm not trying to think about football. I think that my main concern is that I said this last year, but it's worse 1 year on. This is a team that for a lot of years now has kind of relied on its defense. Well, when you look at the stars of the defense, a lot of them are 1 year older. They're not getting any younger. So are you going to get anything out of Cam Jordan? What are you going to get out of Jamario Davis now that he's a year older? Is Marshawn Lattimore fully committed after all the trade rumors? There's a lot of questions. And if the defense can't carry them, then the offense needs to. And I'm not sold totally yet that this brand new offense is going to work. It's hard to say so early. So right now, in my mind, it's not a playoff team, but because of the things I mentioned and how hard their initial schedule is. But, that can change in training camp. So I sound super negative right now, but I'm more just being realistic.
Yeah, man.
That there are a lot of questions about the team.
Look, I'm right there. I am fishing for good things to say, Kat, because I know it gets to be a drag when you just only have bad things to say. But I feel like that's kind of been the course of this offseason. We'll see if it changes once they get to camp. She'll be out in California there at Saints training camp. She's Kat Terrell, ESPN.com. Thanks as always. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.